What's cracking, everybody? Aaron Maggie Felrose here, bringing you some Pokemon Go Battle League content. And in today's video, we're going to be talking about the Ultra League Holiday Cup, coming to you this Thursday's rotation on the 29th of December. But first, a word from our sponsor. That's it? You don't want to do anything else? All right, I'll say them. All right, so y'all, a couple things real quick before we start off some housekeeping. We've got two things that we're going to talk about, and the first one is going to be my Patreon Discord. Guys, if you're not in the Patreon Discord, what are you doing? With just $5 USD a month, you could get unlimited access to me, my teams, my strategies, and these meta-analysis before they even come out onto YouTube, and you probably get to see her more often, and who doesn't want to see more baby, am I right? So come check it out, link in the description. We've got a Patreon Discord with probably the most awesome Pokemon Go community I've ever been a part of or seen in any Discord. Not to knock anyone else's Discords, but mine is definitely the best. The people in it are just absolutely amazing, and they're all wonderful people. And you could definitely stand to get better at Go Battle League or Sylph or whatever aspect of the game that you play just by simply being there. So I want to say that, and also I have a promotion going on Metafy from right now until the end of the year. That's going to be a 30% off discount with the coupon code you're seeing on screen right now, Felrose-Tis the Season on Metafy. Link in the description and details below. With that being said, we're already a minute and a half into this thing, and let's get talking about the Pokemon instead of all of my ways to show myself. So the first Pokemon on the rankings is Aurorus. Now, if you've played any Go Battle League this season, you know that Aurorus has gotten Meteor Beam. Exactly, it's absolutely busted. For the most part, it is double weak to counter and steal, but we're going to talk about that. Aurorus is a very strong Pokemon. In my opinion, it functions much better as a closer when it's gotten an energy advantage and can just start steamrolling things after a Meteor Beam boost. But in my opinion, I think that it's probably the strongest Pokemon in this cup, and obviously, yeah, it has to be. It's #1 on the rankings, right? But not too far below it, and it's absolutely perfect core mate. Giratina Altered, and this cup prefers to run Dragon Breath, Dragon Claw, Ancient Power, because too many normals in this cup to be running Shadow moves, or Shadow Claw, Shadow Force, Shadow Sneak, all those Shadow moves, the Ghost type moves. The moveset doesn't really go well in this cup, but Giratina functions literally as anything. Could be a good lead, could be a good safe switch, could be a good closer. It could really do just about anything. The only problem that it has is that it doesn't really have any good way to really threaten shields, and that's because you're not running Shadow Force in this particular cup. And I probably wouldn't, because the last thing I need is to have Shadow Force on my moveset when I'm up against a Charizard, or up against an Obstagoon, or, heaven forbid, up against both. So I'd prefer not to have to handle that situation. I'll actually be running it. And I think she will too, you silly goose. You're very happy about that, aren't you? You really like Giratina. I bet you do. She'll be a Pokemon Master someday. She'll be your favorite one. Regice coming in at #3 here, I think, is an interesting pick, and I don't have these in any particular order. I'm just kind of going down the list, as it were. Regice is really interesting because it's the only Regi in this cup, and as you're very well aware of all the Regis, they have access to Zap Cannon and Focus Blast and one move of their type. So Regice is going to have access to, I do believe it's Blizzard, and it does want to run Blizzard. Now, it says that you want to run Thunder, which is its legacy move from a few months ago when it was in raids, but if I'm being completely honest with you, I think I'd rather run it with Focus Blast. And the reason why is because I actually like Regice as a safe swap in this cup, and if you use it to bait out an Obstagoon, and you're running Focus Blast, and the opponent only looks at PV Poke and doesn't have any field experience, knowing that Regice has Focus Blast, they might get one-shot. Or close to it. I don't know if it actually one-shots, but it's pretty close. Piloswine XL he's here. You probably don't have a Piloswine XL, but if you do, good gracious, have some fun with that Piloswine. You like the pig, don't you? I like him too. Pumbaa's a good one. So, Obstagoon is, however, going to be on just about every team, I feel. Like, everyone's going to be thinking, oh, I can counter Aurorus, I can counter Giratina, I can counter all the ice types, I can counter just about everything, and I think that Obstagoon is going to definitely be, like, the most common Pokemon on every team of this meta, even more so than it was in Great League, just because there's so very few things that can... It core breaks more things than it loses to, let's just say that. So, Obstagoon is definitely going to be the #1 thing to beat, and because of that, I actually really like Double as a safe swap. Now, the thing with Double is that you can definitely make your opponent think they're going to be bringing out a normal type. You're really, oh, I'm going to bring my Obstagoon to deal with this normal type, and then all of a sudden, hey, guess what? It's my Double, and Double has Double Kick. Now, I realize that Double is an extremely inaccessible Pokemon, and you'd have to have been walking it for a long time to get the XLs for it, because they really weren't here for more than a week. Your boys got one, thankfully, because I actually saved one and walked it a lot. But you know what? That's okay. There's a lot of other things in this cup that can do well aside from Double, but Double is definitely going to be like the best safe swap in this meta. I think Regice is actually pretty up there too. I'd have to play it in practice. I've never played Regice before, but I think they're both going to be very good. So, running a little bit further down the list here, we've got Kyurem with the new Legacy move, Glaciate. It's in raids right now. If you're not raiding it, you should be. It's very good. Glaciate is basically Icicle Spear with a guaranteed attack debuff, so it's like Icy Wind, and Icicle Spear had a small child that likes to hang upside down like a bat and growl at things. So, also, if you're raiding Kyurem, you should probably find somebody locally who you can swap them with and try and get good Ultra League IVs, especially if you're playing Ultra League factions. That thing is going to be a menace in the upcoming Sylph meta, I do believe. So it could even be good right now in regular Ultra League. To be honest, you've probably seen Home Slice Henry and Yonkis and whoever else did videos on it. And speaking of ice types, to round out this page, we've got Abomasnow. I think I prefer the Shadow flavor for Abomasnow, and honestly, when it comes to XLs, if I can make a Shadow, I probably am. Just because if I'm making it, I want to make it once, and I almost always regret not making the Shadow when I do. Now, the nice thing about Abomasnow is that it has the ability to hit a lot of the Pokemon on the list for super effective damage, right? So you've got the Aurorus, can't really tank an Energy Ball all that nicely, and Giratina does not like Powder Snow or Weather Ball, and the same thing goes with Piloswine, is it does not like tanking an Energy Ball. And ice damage overall is neutral into a lot of things. So an Abomasnow with an energy lead or some shields, it could really wreak some havoc on a person's team. Now, let's move into the next set of Pokemon. As I struggle to keep this thing in my lap. You almost grabbed my ear, but you know how mean that would have been? Are we really here for the Ultra League Holiday Cup? Or are we here to see you roll around in my lap, you silly weirdo? Alright, so we've got the next set of Pokemon. Now, the thing is that Mamoswine is on this list. However, I don't really know that Mamoswine is really going to be all that common. It does have the updated moveset of High Horsepower, which is a really nice non-bulldoze move that's good for ground coverage. Really hits hard, and it does well, but honestly, like, yes, it can hit Aurorus for super effective damage. It can hit a few things. It can hit a few good things. So we'll just leave it at that. But honestly, the ground coverage is stab, which is what really makes it strong. So if you're not hitting something with a good ice type avalanche nuke, you're hitting it with high horsepower. Or in some cases, you might even be running a ancient power, which I wouldn't, but you can. And I guess Mamoswine also learned Stone Edge, which I learned that today, as of 3 seconds ago when I looked at the rankings. So I guess you'd be running the Stone Edge moveset just to deal with things like Charizard and Talonflame and other things that like ice types specifically. I think that's actually, it makes more sense now that I think about it. High horsepower is bad in this meta, don't play it. So next on my list is going to be the Alolan Sandslash. This thing, let me tell you, this thing is a little wee monster, and it has access to both Shadow Claw and Powder Snow. You're probably going to want to run it with Shadow Claw in this meta, despite the fact that Obstagoon exists. We kind of just try not to align it against Obstagoon because that's kind of a bad matchup anyway, so we don't really think about it that way. Having access to Ice Punch, Bulldoze, Gyro Ball, there's a few good options for it in this meta. I like Gyro Ball because of the Aurorus matchup, and I think that even though it has Bulldoze listed on PvPoke, I think that the Gyro Ball is going to be really nice because there's not a whole lot other than things like the Alolan Golem and the Magnezone, which are also on this page, that you're really going to be using that move for. So just some tech options if you see a ton of Aurorus in the meta. Just good to know. Next up, we've got Magneton, which kind of works in tandem with Magnezone, and because of the sake of space, I've not listed them both on this page. But they're both very attack-weighted electric steel types that do well when they're not matched up against Obstagoon. And honestly, the Wild Charge or the electric damage goes widely unopposed in this meta, aside from, you know, the dragons and the ground types and the grass types. So, okay, maybe there's a bit more than I thought. But for the most part, you know, Magnezone could be a really solid closer because The wild charges, even when resisted, they hurt. Charizard, the big buffed beastie it is, now probably one of the most widely sought after and useful Pokemon in the entire meta, just because of how quickly it can now get to Blast Burn, and the bait move of Dragon Claw actually has use against things like Altered Giratina. You know, Kyurem will take super effective damage from it. You can also hit stuff, you know, for fairly decent chip damage with it if you need to as well. But also always remember that if you're in a matchup where the Blast Burn is resisted and the Dragon Claw is neutral, that the Blast Burn will always do more damage unless it's double resisted, which normally doesn't happen, especially not in this meta. Charizard is going to be featured, in my opinion, as a very strong safe swap. Could also be a strong closer. It can really, it's like one of those Pokemon that can fit anywhere as long as you give it shields and or some sort of energy advantage. It just sweeps teams. It's like Aurora's, honestly. Yeah, I'm back here laughing at you, so what? You're being weird. Alolan Golem having its legacy move rollout is a feature on this list that I think is going to be very much underappreciated. Now, I know that Volt Switch is a good move, but when it comes to your move sets, you can either pick the thing that's resisted by the ground. Don't pull on my face. Oh, God. That hurt. That hurts, you little monster. Alolan Golem could work with either the rollout legacy move. I don't think it's... Is it legacy? Yeah, it has to be legacy. I'm pretty sure it's legacy. That was its I don't know. Anyway, I can't remember Community Days anymore, but it has rollout, it has Volt Switch, and that's all we need to know. It has Rock Blast and Stone Edge. You could certainly run like Wild Charge Stone Edge. I don't mind the double nuke, especially because it has good energy gaining fast moves. Would make a very good safe switch, very good lead. I probably wouldn't put it in as like a closer though, just because of the fact that, you know, it's going to work better as a shield grabber or something that, you know, can grab a shield and dip out rather than have to be stuck in a matchup and have to depend on that shield, you know, depend on the debuff move in order to get a matchup won. But Miltank is a Pokemon that has rollout but also has tackle, and if I've ever had a chance, it was in Celestial Cup Factions last cycle to play a Tackle Miltank, and I can tell you with absolute certainty that Tackle Miltank is ridiculous. And even if it's matched up against something that resists tackle, those tackles add up so quickly that once you get to the moves, the charge moves, because of that buff that tackle got, it just... Tackle is a very strong move. If tackle's neutral, it's going to rip through something's health bar like you've never even seen. Like, by the time you get to the body slam, Charizard's going to have, like, a quarter of its health missing just from tackle damage alone. It's just a very, very strong move because it's got that stab coverage. It has that same type of attack bonus in tackle. It makes it a very strong, fast move. You could also run rollout for the energy gains, but honestly, when it comes to Miltank in this meta, I really think tackle's going to be better for you. Walrein. Good old Walrus. Walrein does return to this meta again as an ice type and a water type, and is a very potent safe switch. Having the coverage of ice and ground is very strong. There's almost nothing in the meta that opposes that whole typing, and it just makes it a very strong Pokemon. Very good for luring out Obstagoons, if I'm honest. And speaking of wanting to lure out Obstagoons, a very good core mate to the Walrein is Virizion in this meta, because most of the things that Walrein can't beat, Virizion can, especially when it comes to something like Obstagoon or the rock types. Like, those are some of the things that Virizion counters the absolute hardest, and I actually don't mind Virizion as a safe switch either, having like a move set of either Leaf Blade or Stone Edge and the Sacred Sword as its no legacy move. You want to be rolling with some function of those three moves, but Stone Edge on the safe switch Virizion is almost a need, because you have to be able to hit those Charizards or the Talonflames. So moving on down the list, we've got the Avalugs. Both of them I've listed here on the top of this page. Now, alright, so he's seen goodness, girl, you have got some lungs and a grip of iron. Let go, please. You freaking doofus. Alright, so Avalugs. The Hisuian Avalug that was just debuted in the raid day on Christmas Eve here, if you've got any. They're like a reasonable replacement for an Aurorus if you don't have one. Same typing, probably a lot less bulky, but has access to Rock Slide, Crunch, and Blizzard. And it has Powder Snow as a fast move, so it's really not a terrible Pokemon. It just has a terrible typing, to be honest. The moveset's not awful. I don't mind you if you just run Rock Slide and Crunch. Just be aware that if you do end up fighting, getting paired against a fighter of some sort, any fighting type itself, you're going to get completely walled by it. So keep that in mind. Regular Avalugg has Ice Fang for its fast move, and also has an Avalanche and Body Slam moveset. Now imagine if they gave that thing Powder Snow, that would be disgusting. Regular Avalugg has a really good moveset, and it doesn't have as bad of a typing. It's just a solid ice type, so yes, it will take super effective damage from the fire types, but it also won't take super effective damage twice over from counter users and fighters. So if you have one, it's actually not a terrible thing to use, but I think you'd have to be kind of silly to spend the dust on one if you haven't already built it. So Moltres is a low-key, honestly, really strong sleeper pick in this meta, in my opinion. It also benefits from the wing attack buff that Charizard got, and has the same typing, and also has access to Overheat and Sky Attack. So instead of having Dragon Claw, it has Stab Flying type coverage, and it's also got a really strong Fire type nuke, which makes it really interesting. Even though it's got a lot less bulk than Charizard, I think it's very, very glassy. But I still think it'll have a lot of play. If you've got one built up to the level of Ultra League, I think it would be worth your while to just give it a go. But if you don't have one already built, I wouldn't spend the dust on it. Mandibuzz, I think, oh man, Mandibuzz in this meta, I think is going to low-key be really, really strong. Obviously, yes, I know there's going to be ice types, and there's going to be some things that beat it, you know, electric types are going to be in the meta, but I mean, honestly, that's going to be an amazing thing for Mandibuzz to be as a safe switch, because if your opponent's not running an electric type, or if they're not running an ice type that hard counters Mandibuzz, they're going to have a really tough time dealing with it because of how bulky that thing is and how spammy it is. Now, I'm not going to go into all the matchups and everything. I don't want this video to be too terribly long, but Mandibuzz, just if you've got one, you should probably think about using it, especially if the meta doesn't have a whole lot of Alolan Ninetales flying around. I think that that would be a very strong pick. Now, Snorlax is going to come in as a non-XL, which is not very few and far between in this meta. So wherever you can get those, you're going to see a lot of people probably running something like Charizard, Obstagoon, Snorlax, because they want to play no XLs, which I think is a very reasonable team in my opinion. If you want to play that and have a no XL team, I think that's probably one of the strongest non-XL teams you're going to find. Aurorus is not an XL, by the way, but it's very hard to obtain the candies for because of how hard it is to get. You've got to be either hatching a lot of 7Ks or just had them already, or have a ton of rare candy to dump into one. That's kind of what I had to do. I had just had a bunch of rare candy that I dumped into mine. You're such a weirdo. But Snorlax is going to be that de facto safe swap with that Lick, normal type, Body Slam, and fighting coverage and superpower. It's going to be obviously a force to be reckoned with, as it always is. Galvantula is going to be another XL option. Good electric type, very spammy. It gets to its moves in about 12 turns. Also has access to Cross Poison for some of those, you know, grass types and the fairies if you see them. And it's just overall, I mean, it's one of those XLs that you've probably had laying around for a while, and this might not be an awful time to use it. Talonflame, everyone's got one built. If you're running Charizard, you could probably pair it in the back with the Talonflame and run something in the lead that's anti-water / rock / whatever the typing is. Talonflame is a very strong Pokemon with access to Flame Charge and Brave Bird. You already know it plenty from playing in Open Ultra League. It's a bait-dependent, mind game sort of Pokemon, but if those Brave Birds hit, they hit hard. And to round out my page here, we've got Zekrom. You probably don't have one of these built. I don't blame you. It's honestly a waste of Stardust. I built it for 1 week of factions, and I haven't touched it since. But Zekrom is coming back to raids next month, and it is going to be getting its signature move of Fusion Bolt. So if you don't have one now, I wouldn't worry about it. You're probably never going to use an Ultra League Zekrom, to be completely honest. This would be like the one niche time you'd ever use it. So unless you're a factions player, I wouldn't worry about Zekrom too much. But it does have Wild Charge. It's got Dragon Breath. And it's also got Crunch. It's got some decent coverage, and Wild Charge hits like a truck, and we all know that. So anyway, on to the next page. So we've got some more birds on this page. I'm going to lower the volume a bit, but I don't think she is. Articuno is on this page. I have to go a bit down my list here. So Articuno is a nice flying type, been around in the Ultra League for as long as anyone can remember. Has access to Ice Shard, Ancient Power, and even Hurricane is a legacy move if you want to run it that way. In this meta, I think because of all the other ice types, I think Ancient Power is going to be the way to go. But it's a debuff Pokemon, and it can be run as a safe swap or a lead, and I think that Articuno is honestly not a bad choice for this meta. And speaking of fun things and good things that are choice for this meta, guy, you are yawning up the storm. You're tired, aren't you? You're probably tired. I bet you want to go to sleep, don't you? You should have taken your nap earlier, bozo. Looking at mom like, save me. He's not saving you. Ampharos comes in again on this list, just like the Ultra League Premier Cup. It has a lot of play here. As you can see, almost everything on this page here has play against us. I think Ampharos is cute too, Maggie. Oh, there she goes. Crazy girl. Ampharos got that new addition of Brutal Swing in this previous move update in Season 13, so it's got coverage against a lot of the meta, has a lot of neutral coverage, and you can load it up with Zap Cannon or Focus Blast if you're feeling saucy. And in this particular PvP Poke meta, it looks like it's preferring to have Thunder Punch and Focus Blast, probably because of Obstagoon. I think Focus Blast is probably a must in this meta because of the Obstagoon, but I think you can roll with it any way you like. Pidgeot, also a beneficiary of the Wing Attack buff. You all have seen Pidgeot, and you're going to see it on my channel in the next couple of days here as I feature one of the strongest Open Ultra League teams with Pidgeot that I've ever freaking seen, because it's just busted. But Pidgeot now got access to Feather Dance in 14 turns, which is faster than a lot of things in the meta, and that means you can debuff things before they can touch you. And I think that that's a very disgusting trait to have, and it's why Pidgeot is so overpowered. So the problem is that now Pidgeot is sitting in this meta filled with electric, steel, not steel, electric, ice, and other anti-flyers. So probably not the strongest place for Pidgeot to be, but Pidgeot's definitely a strong thing to have if you're looking to play the debuff game one way or the other, because you're either debuffing them or you're debuffing yourself. Alolan Ninetales is another one of the sleeper picks, I think, in this meta. Just like you've seen in the Great League Holiday Cup, Alolan Ninetales is emerging, is a very strong threat, has very, very strong matchups against things like Obstagoon, Giratina, has the ability to charm down Aurorus in the 2 shields, I think, without tanking a Meteor Beam. I'd have to double check the matchup, but I think it can. I know it can in the Great League, that's for sure. Half of its health is gone before Aurorus gets to the Meteor Beam, so... but overall, just is very strong. Charmtails has always been around. It's one of those XLs like Galvantula you've probably had since the beginning of XLs or close to it. So this is a good place to use it if you've got one. Lantern is an XL that you probably don't have unless you've played factions. So this child has not ingested any sugar, I promise. She's just this wild at this time of the night. It's 11:15 and she's wired, dude. Lantern is a really strong anti-flyer, also has a really strong spammy moveset, and a ton of bulk. This thing is thick. If you thought, you know, if you thought Lapras was thick, this thing's thick. And it's got the moveset. You all know Lantern already. It's very strong, and honestly, this is yet another meta where not a lot of things can cover the moveset of the Lantern. It's just the Virizion, I think, is probably going to be the main issue that Lantern's going to run into. And in this meta, it looks like Lantern prefers to run Water Gun, but I mean, I've always been a fan of energy play, so I'd like Surf. But Water Gun's definitely good, and it helps because you can really deal with a lot of the threats on the top of this list, right? So Regice, probably not going to be able to tangle with the Lantern. Oh, someone's up. Daddy, don't get upset, Missy. We're almost done. It's all right. You're okay. Get you a bobble and go to bed. Just be fine. It can tangle with things like Aurorus, Regice. It has neutral plane to Obstagoon. It can also deal with things like Piloswine, Sand Slash. There's so much play. Charizard. If it's not a grass type or a dragon type, Lantern's going to have a good time. Speaking of Lapras, though, Lapras is in this meta. It's on the list. It's a good alternative to something like Walrein, and has the better ice fast. Well, not ice fast. It has Ice Shard for some more ice type fast move damage, but it has a water type charge move that Walrein does not have in Surf, and it also has access to Ice Beam as a legacy move, and you can also run it with Skull Bash. So I think that you probably want to run it with Ice Beam because there's going to be Giratina and Obstacle on like every single team. So being able to hit the hit the Giratina with an Ice Beam is always helpful. And then Lapras is just super bulky. It makes for a really good Pokemon in just about any meta that it's in. So Trevenant, look how far down Trevenant is on these meta. Like, there's so many Ice types, normal types in this meta that Trevenant just falls so far down. I don't even know where it is. Goodness, it's down at 65. I had to pass by so many things that I didn't even have on this list. And by the way, this is kind of like where I'm starting to get to the point of things that you're more likely to see, because you're probably not going to see a whole lot of Galarian Zapdos or Skarmory or Electivire or Zebstrika or Raikou. So we're trying to keep it relevant here, but you should take a look at these rankings anyway, just kind of see what's legal and just at least be aware of like what the movesets are going to be. If you see it, you might see a Zebstrika XL. I don't know, you might. It could happen. But Trevenant, we all know Trevenant has the Shadow Claw, Seed Bomb, Shadow Ball moveset. You can run it with Foul Play if you're feeling saucy, but I wouldn't. And you're going to have that RPS factor if you get it up against an Obstagoon. Not fun. Honestly, I really don't feel like Trevenant has a whole lot of play. It's almost like it was not designed to do well in this meta because of all the ice and all of the just things that do well against it. Normal types are all over the place too. I wouldn't feel comfortable running Trevenant in this meta, to be honest. But it does core very well with Walrein, so you have that as well. And Dragonite. You know, you might be saying, why would you think about Dragonite in a meta filled with ice types? The reason why is because Dragonite has superpower now. And superpower could pretty closely one-shot an Aurorus, I think. If not, maybe it's not a full one-shot, it's pretty close. Double super effective superpower from a Dragonite will hit like a truck, and you need to be aware of it. Otherwise, it's just, you know, it's very strong against some of the things that are on this list, like the electric types. It's all neutral. When you're talking about something like Giratina, it can beat Giratina because it actually gets those Dragon Claws at the same time, but I think because Dragonite has a higher attack stat, it's going to win the CMP and get those off. Also does well against Obstagoon because it's going to be able to get that superpower off when the shields are down, and it's a really good answer to Obstagoon, honestly. And it's also going to be able to do well against anything that isn't resisting its moveset, which is, I mean, truthfully, there's a lot of things in this meta that can do super effective damage. That's why Dragonite's all the way down in like the 70 range. But it's still a pick. It's a good non-XL option for people who don't have, you know, some of these top XL options. And I don't know about you, but it's kind of nice to see the top 5 things in the meta be non-XL options, right? Obstagoon doesn't need to be XL. It can be, but it doesn't have to be. And then you have, like, you know, 6 and more XL things, but then you have Charizard, Magnezone, Mamoswine, Alolan Golem, Walrein, like, all, this cup is not super XL heavy, and I have to give props to Niantic for having a Holiday Cup, even though I know they didn't do it intentionally, because they just said, oh, let's copy and paste the meta from Great League and put it in Ultra League. But I'm giving props to whoever was in charge of that decision, because they crafted a meta here that is not super XL heavy, and I can always be behind that. So, talking about this last page of picks here, this is the XLs that you're probably not going to see. These first 4 here are XLs that you probably might see, but maybe won't see. It's like, they're there, but they're not as great as they seem. Frostlass, dominant in Open Great League, or in the Great League Holiday Cup, but because it doesn't quite hit, I don't even think it hits 2300 CP. It's a spice pick in this cup. It's not going to be nearly as dominant, and honestly, even Giratina can beat it. So, Giratina being an ice ghost type, you would think that Frostlass has the advantage, but unfortunately, I think that the Giratina just outbulks it in the shielding scenarios. It could probably get to 2 avalanches and take it out if there were no shields involved, but by the time that 3rd avalanche is coming through, I think that Frostlass has probably already tanked an Ancient Power and gone down, so that's why you're not going to have a great time against it. Now, Ferrothorn is here because it's able to core break the Aurorus and Giratina if the Giratina is running Dragon Breath and Ancient Power and Dragon Claw. If it's running Shadow Sneak or Shadow Claw or both, then that means that the Ferrothorn is dead meat. But Ferrothorn can win the matchup and can core break those two if the Giratina is running the Dragon Rock moveset. Skarmory is here. It has play, but it's not great. Again, meta filled with ice types and electric types, and there's plenty of steel mixed in there. Skarmory's not having a great time. Altaria is about as good as Dragonite at this point. Has the flying type coverage, which is great, but truthfully, I'm not digging it. It's an XL, and if you've got one, you can use it. Maybe in an ABB with Dragonite, but I'm not really feeling it. But because it's so dominant, in the Great League version. I wanted to include it and just kind of let y'all know that it's really not as good in this cup. It's just so much investment for so little return, and let's be completely honest, like everything on this page just about probably beats Altaria. So Electivire is a non-XL, but fairly costly option. It's 75k Stardust for a second move, but it's got Ice Punch, Wild Charge, and that thing is a shield grabber if I've ever seen one. And I can't tell you how many times in my Go Battle League career I have been on the receiving end of those Electivire sweeps, and they are... I'm going to build one soon, and I'm going to have fun with it, hopefully. It's going to happen. I have to do it. I have good ones in my stash now. It's just a matter of when I'm spending that dust. But speaking of fun things, Zapdos is also in this meta as a flying type. It's number 63. Shadow's number 53 on the meta rankings. You could use it. It dies to ice types, but you could use it. Greedent, also in this meta. Very, very strong anti-ghost pick. If it's running Bullet Seed is the flavor I think I would run it with. Able to have a lot of neutral play with Body Slam, Crunch, and I mean, the thing is just super bulky, and you've probably seen on multiple places, multiple channels, that Greedent is just the fattest squirrel that ever was. Yeah, the fattest squirrel that ever was. And last on my list of this meta to round out everything that I'm talking about here is Credilli. XL has to be a hundo or close to it. Credilli was a secret good cup, good pick in the Great League version. Also something that can pretty much core break the Aurorus cores that's not Giratina. It's really strong against Aurorus though, and other ice types because it has Stone Edge and takes neutral damage, I believe. Or no, it's super effective because rock does not resist ice. So, which is a weird typing interaction, and there's a lot of those in this game. But the fact that it has the Stone Edge means that it has the ability to one-shot or close to some of these not so bulky Pokemon like Regice would take a lot of damage. Aurorus would take a lot of damage from not only the Grass Knot, but also the Stone Edge. And Charizard basically gets one shot. And it resists some of the electric types, so I mean, it has play. We'll just leave it at that. It's got play. So let's take a look at some cores in this meta that we're going to talk about right before wrapping everything up. So there's several cores that I've thought of here, and some that I've even talked about through the video. Ones that aren't listed here would be the Charizard Obstagoon core. You've also got the so the ones that are on this video here. We got Aurorus and Giratina, the unbreakable, super strong core. Just check it out on a PvPoke. The core gets all A's across the board all by itself. It's just a matter of figuring out what you want in the lead, what you want in the back, and what you want your safe switch to be. It's the core is ridiculous. And I'll let the Sims speak for themselves. You can't really break this core. It's very hard to do. Obstagoon and Articuno make a very interesting pair. I think it's interesting. I do. Because there's not a whole lot of fighters in the meta, and I mean Obstagoon and Virizion are like the only two things that have an actual fighting type ability. I know that Double has counter or has double kick, and I know that there are obviously going to be some things in here with a fighting type attack, but there's not very many in those. That's pretty much the only three that I'm ever going to see. And Articuno can deal with those things, especially Virizion, because of that grass typing on Virizion. It can just Ice Shard its way to victory. And it's just, anything that basically beats Articuno, Obstagoon basically beats too. So next core I've got here is the Sand Slash and Fire Flying core. You could honestly run this as an ABB if you wanted to, because obviously both of these Pokemon beat the fighting type Pokemon that you're going to see. So Charizard and Talonflame both do very well against things that are of the fighting variety. And as you know, they both have very strong nuke moves, and Alolan Sand Slash just core breaks so much stuff. It's kind of crazy. Some Pokemon that would probably do good against that core, though, for example, like Snorlax is very neutral and has the ability to threaten the shields off of that poor little shrew. And then you've got something like Lantern, which would be extremely difficult for this team to deal with. But some 4 safe swap picks that I picked for this meta. We've got Virizion. If you put Stone Edge on it, it could be a very tricky safe swap, and your opponent has to respect Stone Edge, especially if they swap in Talonflame or Charizard. Walrein is a de facto safe swap, as is Snorlax. They've kind of been around long enough that they speak for themselves with their moveset versatility and their pressure on shields with the movesets that they've got. And then new to the party here is Double. This is probably the first meta that I'll get to try my new Double in. I did finish it. It's ready. I'm going to do it. And Double is just so versatile in the fact that you have to guess whether it's got Wild Charge or Payback. It's probably going to run Payback, though, because of the Ghost types. And Double Kick Body Slam is just so spammy. It's like Sacred Sword Double Kick. It's the same energy and cost and everything. It's just ridiculous. But y'all, this is going to be the video. I hope you have an amazing Holiday Cup Ultra League version. And let me know in the comments how your teams are going to go. How's your, what's your plan for the Cup? Are you going to be looking at this adorable baby the entire video? Because I kind of have been. So if I've been distracted, that's why. Anyway, thank you all so much for watching. And we're going to catch you guys in the next video. Bye-bye. Bye. Dad, what are you doing? You're weird. Stop it.